I didn't think my own parents were capable of stealing from me, but I guess I was wrong because they just sold my 1969 Mustang Mach 1, the car I spent 5 years of my life restoring with my own hands just so my sister could go on a spiritual healing retreat in Bali. I woke up on a Tuesday morning to find my garage door open and my pride and joy gone, only to find a sticky note on the kitchen counter that said we did what was best for the family. I want you to listen to everything that happened and tell me, am I the monster for cutting them off and suing my own flesh and blood to get my money back? Or would you have done the exact same thing if your family betrayed you like this? This whole nightmare started long before the car went missing, back when my sister, Chloe, decided that the world owed her a living because she's the sensitive one of the family. Growing up, I was always the reliable one, the one who worked a part-time job at 16, saved every penny, and stayed out of trouble. Chloe, on the other hand, was the golden child who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, even when she was failing out of college or quitting her 4th job in a year because the energy of the office was too negative. My parents, Susan and Mark, always made excuses for her, saying she just hadn't found her path yet. My path, however, was very clear. I fell in love with classic cars when I was 12, and by the time I was 22, I had saved up enough to buy a rusted-out, beat-up 1969 Mustang Mach 1. It was a total wreck. The engine was seized, the floorboards were rotted, and the interior smelled like 40 years of regret, but it was mine. For 5 years, while Chloe was traveling Europe on my parents' dime and finding herself, I was in my garage every single weekend. I learned how to weld, how to rebuild a Windsor V8 engine, and how to lay down a perfect coat of Raven black paint. I spent nearly $30,000 on parts and thousands of hours of labor. That car wasn't just a vehicle. It was a physical manifestation of my hard work and discipline. It was appraised last month at nearly $85,000 because of the quality of the restoration. Meanwhile, Chloe came back from her latest soul-searching trip to Mexico completely broke and, according to her, spiritually depleted. She claimed she had a mental breakdown because the modern world was too harsh for her soul, and the only thing that could fix her was a 3-month intensive healing retreat in Bali that cost a staggering $40,000. My parents, who are nearing retirement and don't have that kind of liquid cash, were desperate to help her. They started dropping hints to me about how lucky I was to have such an expensive hobby and how selfish it was to have so much money tied up in a car while my sister was suffering. I told them flat out that my car was not an ATM. I told them I worked for every bolt in that machine, and if Chloe wanted $40,000, she could get a job or they could take out a loan. I thought that was the end of it. I live in a small house about 10 minutes away from my parents, but since my garage was being renovated for better insulation, I had been keeping the Mustang in their spacious 2-car garage for last month. I trusted them. They had a key to my house, and I had a key to theirs. On that Tuesday morning, I went over to their place to take the Mustang out for a drive before work. When I pulled into the driveway, the garage door was wide open. The spot where my car usually sat was empty. There was nothing but a few oil drops on the concrete. My heart dropped into my stomach. I thought it had been stolen. I ran into the house screaming for my mom, thinking they had been robbed. My mom was sitting at the kitchen table, calmly sipping tea, while my dad refused to look me in the eye. I asked her where the car was, and she just pointed to a legal envelope on the table. She told me they had sold it to a private collector they met through a mutual friend. They sold it for $60,000 way below market value, just to get the cash quickly. They had already wired $40,000 to the retreat center in Bali and gave the rest to Chloe for travel expenses and organic meals. I couldn't breathe. I asked them how they could do this, and my dad finally spoke up, saying that family helps family, and that I was being materialistic for caring more about a clump of metal than my sister's mental health. They actually thought I would just be upset for a few days and then get over it because we're family. So, that's where things stood. My life's work was sold behind my back to fund a vacation for a sister who has never worked a day in her life, and my parents were acting like they were the heroes of the story. I was standing in that kitchen, looking at the people who raised me, realizing they didn't respect me at all. I had to make a choice right then and there. Before I tell you the absolute nuclear option I decided to take and how I burned my family life to the ground to get justice, I want you to pause. Go down to the comments right now and tell me, what would you do? Would you let it go for the sake of family peace? Or would you make them pay for what they stole? I really want to know if I'm the only one who thinks this is unforgivable. I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. I just picked up the envelope, saw the name of the buyer, and walked out of the house. My mom called after me, saying dinner was at 6, as if everything was normal. I went straight to the police station. I told the officer on duty that my vehicle had been stolen. When he asked for the details, I gave him the VIN and the names of the suspects, my parents. The officer looked at me like I was crazy, but I had the title to the car in my name. My parents' names were nowhere on that document. They had committed grand theft auto and fraud by forging my signature on the bill of sale. The police informed me that since it involved family and a forged document, it was a serious felony. I didn't care. I wanted my car back, or I wanted them in handcuffs. Within 4 hours, the police were at my parents' door. My mom called me, hysterical, screaming that the police were there and asking why I would do this to them. I told her, "You didn't sell a car. You stole my property. You have 1 hour to tell me exactly where the car is and give me the contact info for the buyer, or I'm pressing charges." It turns out the buyer was a local businessman who thought the sale was legitimate because my dad told him I was away in the military and had authorized the sale. When the buyer found out the car was stolen and that he was technically in possession of stolen property, he was terrified. He returned the car to the police impound lot immediately to avoid being charged with receiving stolen goods. I got my car back, but the $60,000 was already gone. My parents had spent it within hours. The retreat was non-refundable, and Chloe had already spent thousands on a new spiritual wardrobe and first-class tickets. The buyer was now out $60,000, and he sued my parents for every penny. My parents, in turn, begged me to drop the criminal charges and loan them the money to pay back the buyer. I looked them in the face and said, "I don't have $60,000. Maybe you should sell your house." Chloe ended up having to cancel her trip, but she couldn't get the money back from the retreat center. My parents are now facing a massive civil lawsuit and potential jail time for the forgery. My entire extended family is calling me a cold-hearted snake and saying I've ruined my parents' lives over a car. But from where I'm sitting, they ruined their own lives the moment they decided my hard work was theirs to gamble with. I've gone completely no contact with all of them. I moved the Mustang to a professional, high-security storage facility, and I've changed my phone number. They thought my love for them would make me adore Matt, but all it did was make the betrayal hurt worse. Looking back, I realize that some people will use the word family as a weapon to keep you in line while they take everything you have. I learned the hard way that blood doesn't give anyone the right to rob you of your dreams or your future. If I hadn't stood my ground, I would be sitting at home right now with an empty garage and a heart full of resentment, while my sister posted photos from a beach in Bali. Instead, I have my car, and I have my self-respect, even if it means I'm spending the holidays alone this year. It's a heavy price to pay, but it's one I'm willing to settle. If you think I did the right thing by holding them accountable, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories about people standing up for themselves. Do you think I should have been more lenient since they are my parents? Or did they get exactly what they deserved? Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below, because I'm still processing all of this and could use some outside perspective. I'll see you all in the next story.